What inspires your art?
Well, I'm just trying to have fun. And so if I have a quirky thought, I try to illustrate it. And mostly I've done, as you can see, geekish kind of things. But I'm also like to paint nature. I've spent countless months and years living in the mountains of the West. And so I paint them a lot. But I've also painted landscapes to remind me of the feeling of being up there in ways that photographs don't quite capture. There's always a magical aspect.
What inspired your painting for the cover art of Cæsura, with the skeletons and the dancing skeletons and
Uh,
the bats and
okay,
such?
that one. I was teaching art to at-risk children in the barrio, and I painted it with a Day of the Dead show in mind, but I also was using it as a takeoff point to where we would tell stories. I was trying to get these were 11 to 13-year-olds to let their imaginations free, and so I would show them the painting, and then we would tell a collective story.
What made you start doing art? And do you remember like the first time that you kind of discovered that you wanted to do art?
Yes, I was in my late 40s, and I had come to the end of a stretch in my life to where for 11 years I had a madness on me where all I wanted to do was fly fish wilderness rivers in Montana. So 9 out of 11 years, that's what I did from as soon as kids got out of school. So from June until usually we went over, come back in October, maybe November. So I was spending 4 or 5 months a year in the mountains of the Northwest, mostly Montana and Idaho, but also Arizona. We spent desert time. Often what I would do is wait. The second snowstorm would drive us down from Montana into Colorado, and then that next snowstorm would send us down to New Mexico and so forth. I felt mystically bonded with whooping cranes, which I would often see leaving, heading south. They were my hint. I see them going. It's time to leave.
So you kind of migrated.
Yeah, I migrated. I thought that was the perfect life, to live the life of a goose. Up in the marshes of Montana in the summer, and then down in warm Mexico or Texas in the spring, in the winter. And anyways, I was trying to explain the beauty of it all. It turned out words failed me, and it turned out I could kind of paint it. And so I started painting with acrylic pastels, and then I suppose when I was just turning 50, I started doing acrylics. And then it turns out that my inner nature is more geeky than spiritual. So the very first painting I did that got a lot of acclaim and actually sold for, I got $1,500 for it. And so everybody, all my art friends were amazed. I was amazed. So I thought, hey, I'm onto something. And
Nice.
it was a painting about the central division of quantum mechanics, where I showed Albert Einstein arguing with another scientist about the nature of the atom. And so that urged me on. One of my first customers or clients, the one that bought the Einstein painting, he told me, here, that I should remember the sofa rule. And that was, if you go to, they invite you to a fancy party, you know, that you can't charge more than they pay for the main sofa in the living room. So if they got a $10,000 sheepskin lined sofa, then that's how much you can charge. But if they got a Kmart $199 special, you'll be lucky to get $99. And so
I'll have to remember that rule.
the sofa rule, he called
The
it.
sofa rule. I love it.
I have a tiny slice of spiritual nature and a big nerd part where I believe in the law of large numbers and that coincidences are just coincidences. They're not magical interventions because you prayed or you didn't pray. And but now and then that little slice comes up and I paint that. Now, one thing is I was corrupted early. At 13, somebody invited me to a book club where I read on Walden Pond and Candide and other subversive literature like that. And so I began protesting American intervention in Latin America and mostly in Indochina. It was before the Vietnam War started, and then I got involved by the time I was, say, 15 in civil rights where protesting segregation. So I started off protesting segregation, and then I was for integration, and then kind of in the end, all I'll care about is equal opportunity. I don't care if we integrate or differentiate as long as opportunities are equal for everyone.
Yeah, you're actually in a documentary or a couple of documentaries, and one is about the
Yes, well, I
sit-ins.
mean, I just happened to be early on the game, so I was on a documentary because I attended and helped integrate the movie theaters in Austin, or the two theaters around campus, and which had a cascading effect in that I didn't know at the time, but the theater's owner also owned 90-something other theaters and had been scared of integrating because, afraid of bombs or whatever. And but after we integrated the one here in Austin, he integrated the 90-something other in a dozen other cities. And then I was part of the group that forced integration of the swimming pools in Austin. And then later I led demonstrations to integrate the restaurants and other facilities in Austin. And so I was a troublemaker as a young man.
Well, we're happy for that. You're a troublemaker. Thank goodness.
Well,
you were.
it's kind of odd that, to be documented and asked about all these questions that had 50 years ago, and I didn't intend to make history. I was like Forrest Gump. I just happened to be there, and for instance, I spent the summer of 1963 on a civil rights project in Memphis, Tennessee. We were working with refugees from the Mississippi Delta. And from there I went on and was able to go to the March on Washington, where I heard Martin Luther give his famous speech, "I Have a Dream." And all that was very illuminating to me. I didn't know that many people cared at the time. And so, like I say, like Forrest Gump, I just happened to be there. I thought even better was after hearing Martin Luther give his speech, I went up to New York City, up to Harlem, and I got to hear Malcolm X give a White Devil speech there at 125th Street up in Harlem. So, it's not like I planned to do it, but
Yeah.
there I was.
Yeah, but you made the choice to also, risk the possible circumstances of, protesting and stuff. And so not everybody, even though they maybe had the beliefs that you didn't necessarily have the guts to, to
Well,
protest. So it wasn't to give yourself some
Oh,
more credit there.
Well, it was personal. They were discriminating against me.
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
right.
it's, I don't mind
Right.
they just couldn't discriminate against you, but man, it's me they're talking about.
You took it personal.
I took it personally. I
Absolutely.
did, and
What would you call yourself as a writer? Nonfiction,
oh,
memoir?
well, a little of both. I started off. I didn't intend to write. People told me all my life I should write because I've had an adventurous life, and so I wrote. I went to 3 art openings in a row where a young Chicana asked me if I had ever been mistreated by the police. And so I tell them, man, do bears shit in the woods or what? And so they challenged me to write it down. They said that it was my duty to my people to document all this. So I did. And so it wasn't very pleasant to do, and one of them is part of this book,
Wimberley?
in Cæsura, of one of the incidences where I was threatened by police at gunpoint, which happened many times, and I've documented a couple of them. And a couple of other incidents. And I did that out of duty rather than pleasure. And for pleasure, I've written a historical novel set in 1680 where I have a Native American child grow up in the care of Jesuits and is taken to China, where he meets the Emperor of China and goes to Siberia, blah, blah, blah. But I historically read all the details. That is, that in part of the journey in this book, which I call Medicine Raven, I looked up in the archives from the Jesuit library the journals of 2 priests that went along on this trip in 1689. And so I was able to fill in all sorts of details. And so that was a ton of fun, especially when I can throw in little tidbits. Like, for instance, one of the priests that comes in from Europe to China, everybody's interested in gossip. And so one of the things, and they're all musicians, and they ask him, "Oh, what's new in Paris?" And he goes, "Oh, well, that I just heard a new concerto by my friend Corelli, and here, let me show you the movement." And so you have to be a real history geek to know that Corelli was a famous musician of the time and blah, blah, blah. But I started writing when I was 70, and so I had my studio burned down, and just when I thought I had my career set up, that is, I had a certain amount of notoriety, I had a studio, it burns down. I thought, man, is this a cosmic message from the Joker that I need to start writing? Because that's when the 3 students wanted me to write about police adventures. And so I realized I hadn't put 2 words together in 40 years. And so I wrote a novel memoir of an adventure I had that went 300 pages.
Yeah. You've been pretty prolific in your writing since the last time I visited you,
Well,
I mean, you were before
I stayed
too,
busy.
but then, yeah.
If you don't do it, it doesn't get done.
That's right. That's right.
And so, actually, the blessing is I've learned that when I can't write, I can edit. If I can't put it out, I can cut it out.
David,
Okay?
well, thank you for being here and doing this interview with me. And your art is beautiful, and so is your writing is very strong. So happy
thank
to
you.
have it in the.
No, I enjoy accolades and all that. In a funny way, it doesn't matter. I do it. No, I do it anyway. I mean, for a while I thought I was going to be famous and rich and famous, and now I'm pretty much just rich. And, that's okay.
Thanks, David.